of reason in PDP. I'm a technocrat. I'm a professional. I have a job. Politics for me is part-time. In fact, if the miracle will happen, it should be that politicians in Nigeria must first of all present their credentials, show us what work they've done before, the businesses, the empires they have built before they come. So what is happening is that there are too many people who live virtually on politics in Nigeria, and so it makes it so difficult for them to understand, to appreciate the suffering of the ordinary people of Nigeria. Nobody is talking about governance again in Nigeria. They are campaigning. Yesterday I drove through Akure and I already saw campaign offices of Mr. President. It's unbelievable. INEC is watching. People want to register new parties. They can't register it because they will put all kinds of bottlenecks on their path. So for me, whatever happens, when I said my soul is out of PDP, there is nobody except maybe those benefiting from this government or any other government who would be happy to see how PDP is in tatters today, to see the rags PDP is wearing today, just because one man wants to keep PDP for himself. He knows what he's doing. They say he's bold, he's courageous. I dare him to join APC. He's holding PDP down, hoping that whenever APC runs into trouble, then he will resurrect PDP for himself. That's all. He knows that PDP is dead. The man who says presidency should be zoned to the south wanted to be vice president to Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. He doesn't like to hear that truth, but that's the truth. He wanted to be vice president to Atiku Abubakar. So if the current vice president and they won that election, will he be talking the way he's talking now? And at any rate, each and every political party has a right to field any candidate, no matter where that candidate is coming from. Any candidate, whether in the north, in the south, in the east, in the west. It is the right, it is the sole prerogative of every political party. It is not the sole property of Nyesom Wike. In fact, what he is doing now in the decent society is tantamount to staging a coup against a political party by going on out and using forces of coercion and all manner of subterfuge to fight the party that made him everything that he is today. I have no fear of contradiction about everything that he is today.
Your Excellency, our landlord, Nyesom Wike, the Federal Minister of Federal Capital Territory and the Minister of State and all members of this team, from architects, supervisors, all who are involved in the transformation of this edifice. I'm greatly honored and happy to be here to reopen this International Conference Center as part of our determined effort to change the way we do things, to reflect us as people of quality, people of character, people of determination, people of great spirit. That's what we are. And I'm glad in this week you are reflecting that. Don't pay attention to the busybody and the bystanders, whatever they say. Continue with your good work. You are a transformational leader. You have the foresight, the vision, and determination to succeed. Thank you very, very much. When I attended the conference of ECOWAS Parliament here, it was a very dirty, disorganized, inhabitable environment. Aside from the side talk with the Senate President, I turned to Wike. I said, but this conference center is not reflecting who we are. Have we sunk this low? He said, no. But bear with us. We will do whatever we can do to transform the place. You won't come back to find it in a dilapidated, uninhabitable situation that it is. And today I am very, very happy. Thanks to the contractor. I know somebody hooked my hand there, the representative of Julius Berger. Today, we are not talking about renegotiation. We are talking about rehabilitation. We are talking about quality, commitment to details, and good work. It reflects what Julius Berger has been known for in this country for years. Whatever might be wrong today is a sign of a good thing that we are correcting and we are reflecting, renewing our hope and believing in ourselves and what we can do, what Nigeria can be, a great nation on earth. Through the Renew agenda, we are determined to renew infrastructure across the key sectors of this country. Transportation, healthcare, education, energy, and urban development. Because we understand that modern infrastructure is the backbone of a thriving economy in an inclusive and progressive society. The International Conference Center is part of our country's larger vision to become a hub for regional diplomacy, continental trade discussions, global partnership, and many more thoughtful, well outlined goals that reflect our Nigerian first. I thank all of you. Eugene Abu, I thank you too. For being.
It's reinforced by the contradiction. Now, what are the, if we did any evidence of Nigerian failure? I think in 1964, thereabout, a leading developmental economist, Dudley Sear, gave us a framework, and Mr. Peter Obi has been very clear in his statements on that framework. He says, how do we assess whether a country is economically developing? He says there are only 3 indicators. First, what is happening to poverty? Second, what's happening to unemployment? Third, what's happening to inequality? Then if you like, you can look at what's happening to gross GDP per capita. But these 3 are the most important thing. So if you look at, without wasting time, clearly Nigeria is failing and failing woefully. By 2019, we are described as the largest poverty nation. The World Poverty Clock showed that we are the largest collection of poor people. But beyond that, if you look at the World Poverty Clock, you see something. Every minute, second, people are living or running into poverty. So it's like they have a figure. You see people running out of poverty, showing how many people are escaping from poverty in those countries. They see people running into poverty. Interestingly, Ethiopia and Nigeria were very poor. But Ethiopia has more people running away from poverty. Nigeria had more people running into poverty. So it's not that we are poor. We are getting poorer in almost geometrical proportion. So, for example, by the official NBS statistics, by 2019 and 2020, the poor, very poor people in Nigeria were about 45%, 42, 45. Today, it's about 56% and growing. It's expected that this year alone, about 20 million, up to 20 million people will get into poverty. Now, if you look at the non-income measure, look at deprivation, vulnerability, access to basic needs. At least in 2019, about 154 million people don't have the barest facility for the barest existence. Now, it's not just that Nigeria is poor. Nigerians are getting poorer. It's that the prospect of Nigerians being less poor diminishes every day. If you look at our debt to GDP, may look comfortable, but look at our debt to revenue and debt servicing. How much we are using. This government claims to have driven it down from 70-something% to about 60-something%. But if you're using 60-something% of your earning, and your earning is diminishing, and your population is growing to service just debt. So if you add the new wave of debts that we're going to incur, we might get back to 99% debt servicing. So what's the point? The point is that we're not just poor. We are increasingly not having resources to even escape poverty. Now, if you look at unemployment, the federal government changed the methodology and got us to about 4.something%. But everybody knows that the definition of poverty today is that if you are working for 2 hours, if you're a cab driver, Uber driver, 2 hours, you are working, which is laughable. Now, The point is that unemployment is a big problem. Now look at inequality. Gini coefficient inequality were very high. But the key point I want to leave us today is a data that shows that even by 1999 to 1994, from that time, Nigeria and Taiwan, Nigeria was generating about 1,500 megawatts, 3,500 megawatts daily. Taiwan was doing about 1,500 megawatts. Today, they're doing 30-something thousand, and we are still at 4,000. If we are generous, sometimes 3,500. Now, this is a story around stagnation and decline. Now, if you look at macroeconomic factors, they are more terrible. If you look at fragility index globally, which means that Nigeria is not just poor, Nigeria is very fragile. Nigeria is one of the most fragile nations in the world. Today, if you look at innovation, I looked at the latest 2024 Innovation Index by the World WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization. Togo, Niger, all West African countries are scoring higher than Nigeria in both innovation and infrastructure index. So this is a case of real failure. Now, that failure is not a problem too much. What's a problem is actually that your design does not enable you escape failure. So Nigeria has a bigger problem, which I call the fact that Nigeria is contradicted. There is a contradiction in the Nigerian system. Now, I just want to mention quickly before I get to what this means for revolution. Nigeria has a nationality problem. The key challenge for Nigeria has been, how do we describe a Nigerian? How do we describe ourselves as a nation state? The history of economic and social development in the world tells us that it starts with a national economy. A nation, it must be a nation. And a nation is defined not by basically geography. It's a narrative, it's a construct around oneness, common identity, law, and social norms. So we have a crisis of nationality. We have a crisis of state and religion. This is critical. And these crises are foundational. These are crises that we have refused to transcend because of leadership failure. So today, we are gathered here on the Obedient Family as one people, one Nigerian nation. But outside here, our government continues to see us more as ethnic and religious differences. People are different. That's a crisis that we have to deal with. The third crisis is a value crisis. Value does not come from heaven. Value is a formation around social relationships. So today, people argue, and I say so, that about 60% of certificates in Nigerian public sector are forged. Nigeria has an epidemic of forgery. And that epidemic of forgery is a leadership crisis. And forgery, a nation of forgery, a nation that has promoted forgery, is not just about the fact that criminals are getting access to resources. It's about the fact that they are corrupting the software for development. Software for development is ethical, it's moral, it's about value. And that's why you can't talk about any country that has any real transformation without a real orientation of value. Leadership is where value flows leadership, because value is about what we affirm and signal, and people act in like manner. So if you look at from 1999, when people who were either former criminals, I remember when I was special advisor to Senate President, a senator said that he looked and saw people he put in jail sitting in the hallowed chambers. That is the epitome of a national value crisis. And that value crisis translates to the fourth problem, which is a productivity crisis. Without value, you can't be productive. I pity our leader, Peter Obi, who has been crying about productivity, urging us to do. We can't be productive until we restore back value. And that value is a sense in which people know that they're getting what they deserve. Today, it's difficult to tell students, the universities. If my daughter was going to go to NYSC, he said, Daddy, it's okay. He said, no, Daddy, it's about who you know, talk to somebody. Today, it's always about talk to. So why would there be a pursuit of excellence if work, reward, has no bearing to work? Look at the last JAMB crisis and compare with the INEC problem. And I tell people, INEC problem is not just a problem of systems or a problem of institutions. They're important. It is a collapse of value because the underlying electoral reform is professionalism and value. So our leadership has debased professionalism and value and norms because they have not been able to, the reward for leadership has no bearing with value and integrity. And so that constitutes the fourth crisis. And the question then is, why is this problem of nationality crisis, religious crisis, the problem of value and productivity crisis, why is it not being solved? That is why this revolution is important. Let me give you reasons why it's not being solved. One, Nigerian politics is, the Nigerian nation is trapped in a political incubus. You can't move forward. Why? Because the politics itself reinforces the pathology. Our politics reinforces the pathology. And this politics has a historical legacy, starting from the ethnic competition of the First Republic, coming to the military debasement of value, and today's new politics, which is founded not on any commitment to national development, but committed to two things: ethnic and religious outbidding, competition among ethnics, and secondly, individual outbidding. Very important to bear that in mind. Second, I talk about inherited political culture. The other thing that has made this revolution impossible or has trapped it is that there's absence of a national elite. There's an absence of a national ideology of transformation. Nigeria has had moments to transform, but politics has headed back. And that's why the challenge for Nigeria is twofold, two ways. Either a ballot box revolution or an anarchical sort of violence-based revolution that nobody can define the direction. There's a guy who talks about revolution. Now, the irony is that revolution has not always historically been positive. The only bankable revolution for Nigeria is a ballot box revolution for two reasons. Because it has legitimacy and fits into the new geopolitics. The revolution of red beret or green beret outside mobilizing Nigerians towards electoral victory is both an illusion and a dangerous revolution. The real revolution is what obedience are talking about, ballot box. So our politics has been... So Nigeria has not been able to transform this endemic crisis because of low energy politics, low energy, elitist politics, structure, co-opt political leaders, take governors, honorable members, they sign agreement, give them return ticket, low energy politics. We need a high energy politics that focuses on the people, that goes to the grassroots, that mobilizes people, that is strong on messaging, that is revolutionary in that is driven by a passion for change and transformation. We've not had that. We had some snippets of that in the Second Republic with parties like PRP, parties that were grounded with the people, parties that were focused on mobilizing people to challenge the system. So the question then is, what is the solution? And I'm coming to the second point about why I think Mr. Peter Obi is the person who can lead this revolution. Now, what's the problem? The solution is simple. We have to do a new politics that has three characteristics I put here. This politics must reject a rejection of false mythologies about Nigerian politics. The false mythologies is that Nigerian politics must go through a particular path dependence. It must be ethnic, it must be religious, it must hover around some so-called big names. That is not true. Today, the confluence of new technology, of the rise of narratives, and the poverty that's prevalent means that all of us here today can overthrow the political order and create a new one. You don't need to be anchored to any powerful name. We have to reject the mythologies that change is not possible. The mythology that if you don't have billionaires, it can't win election. The mythology that INEC, though it is a bankrupt, flawed electoral commission, cannot be changed. It can be changed. The mythology that judges can safely continue to give judgments that are essentially political stimulus to electoral fraud, that's a mythology. Judges themselves can be converted into a new jurisprudence that recognizes and authenticates the people's will. We have to depart from these mythologies. We have to reject them. We have to reject also the idea of ethno-religious outbidding and competition. Nigerians have a common destiny to perish or prosper. We have a common destiny to be a poor people or to be prosperous. Our diverse identities are not themselves hindrance to transcending and mobilizing a common movement. Our leaders, those who have put us in this tragedy, have foolishly and criminally emphasized ethnic religious difference. Nigeria is a contiguous zone that poverty can radiate across board and wealth can radiate across. There should be no geopolitical resistance to creating a Nigerian movement that answers to every Nigerian. That's what obedient movement will reject. And finally, the movement must develop a developmental consensus centered around the two concepts I've spoken about. And now let me say a bit about why I think we have found an ideology for revolution. The notion of a democratic citizen, that's something I've learned earlier. Every leader you see, look at their profile. I have a theory I call the biographical theory of leadership. People don't lead beyond their experience and who they are. Many of us will say, oh, that man, I used to respect him. I didn't know. No. There's a verse in the Bible says, lay no hand on man suddenly. You should always ask, where is this person coming from? Because leadership is not strange from your personality. Leadership is who we are. Leadership is paying attention. Leadership is the passion, what drives you. Now, let's look at those who have got it right in the past. Let's take 3 examples. The man who put China on the right path, Deng, was a member of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. He was sent to Russia, Paris, and he, instead of going to the classes for ideologues, he went to the factories, thinking about how did the West create wealth. When he came back to China, Chairman Mao, he was imprisoned for some of his views. He didn't go extreme, but what he did was take the party and said that we must change this. What did he do? The first thing he says, wealth is good. Second thing he says, pursue truth through facts. Third, he says, it doesn't matter whether the cat is black or white as long as it catches mouse. This man was pragmatist. He understood how to take the party and turn it around. He's a member of the old order, but his passion, his commitment is about how do we make China become great. Let's take Lee Kuan Yew, who went to Oxford. Now, these people, some of them are educated. Deng didn't go to Oxford, but they share one thing in common. They have the pedigree of commitment to the well-being of their people. They have the personality of being decisive, being quiet but clear-minded, being soft but firm. They're not swashbuckling warmongers. They're not cracking heads and breaking bottles. But they are decisive, clear-minded where they are going. Take General Park, the same thing. Some are dictators, some are Democrats. What qualifies Mr. Peter Obi to lead this revolution? And that's the point I said, that first, profile. Who he is, what he has done before. I watched the AIT interview, and I was just laughing.